So if you struggle to prospect consistently, I totally get it. For years, here's what would happen to me. Every Sunday night, I would say to myself, okay, this week I'm going to have an awesome week. I'm going to be super consistent. I'm going to be super disciplined. I'm going to be super focused. And what would happen is on Monday, I'd have an amazing day. I'd hit my 50 contacts for the day. I'd set a couple listing appointments and things went well. However, week after week after week, what would often happen for a long time was that Tuesday got a little bit worse, Wednesday got a little bit worse, Thursday got a little bit worse, Fridays I would really prospect, and it would be like this week after week after week after week until there's some things that I did in my life when I changed and I altered my behavior and how I looked at focus and self-discipline that I want to share with you guys in this video that I think will really help you, because I think the number one thing that I see that struggles, that a lot of real estate agents struggle with is consistency. And it doesn't matter if it's prospecting or open houses or leads. It doesn't matter what you're doing to acquire new business. I think the number one challenge for all of us would be that we're just not consistent in whatever it is that we're doing. So let's start off with tactic number one, which is to focus on activities, not the outcomes. All right. So here's what I mean by this. I think that oftentimes we associate how we're doing in business based on a result. And it's easy to do. I get it. It's real easy to get excited when you have a closing. It's really exciting when you write an offer. It's really exciting when you take a listing. However, those are all what we would call lagging indicators. That is an outcome. That is a result. What we need to focus on, rather, is the leading indicators. What are the activities that led to those results? Because we can only control what we can control. I think that's safe to say. It'd be very difficult for you to wave a wand and automatically, out of the blue, get a listing contract signed right this second. However, it's very, very reasonable, however, to focus on how much time you're going to spend in knocking doors, how much time you're going to spend making outbound prospecting phone calls, how much time you're going to spend doing open houses, how much time you're going to spend creating content, how much time you're going to spend writing your blog. That, however, is all inside of your control, number one. And number two, that is a leading indicator. How much time we spend doing an activity will lead to a result. So what we have to focus on, and what I often spend a lot of time on with the agents that I coach, is controlling the controllable. How much time are we spending in an activity that will lead us to the results that we want? That's where we're going to place our focus. Number two, the Pomodoro technique. So I think what happens is when we start to prospect, we know it's very, very boring, right? And what happens is when that boredom starts to creep in, that's when distractions start to take over. That's when our impulse to invite distraction starts to creep in, I think would be a better way to say it. Oftentimes, we are the distraction because we invite the distraction. Why? Well, because what we're doing right now, prospecting, is so boring that we're looking for some increased dopamine. So anything that catches our eye, a blog post, an email, a text, a phone call, hey, do you have a second? Anything that comes along and gets our attention, we're quick to jump on that, even though we make the same complaint, well, Brandon, I can't be consistent in prospecting because of all these distractions. Well, is it those distractions, or is it you inviting those distractions? And so what we have to look at is a technique called the Pomodoro technique. And so I have a lot of my coaching clients do this, the same exact thing. Rather than saying, okay, wow, I've got a prospect for 3.5 hours. That seems like a daunting task. Well, we're going to break that up into mini sprints. And here's what we know about all the studies around human productivity. When we know the activity that we're doing, when we know when it's coming to an end, we can focus a lot more on that activity until its entirety, because we know the break is coming soon. So in other words, rather than sitting at your desk trying to say, okay, I'm going to prospect for the next 3.5, 4 hours, which is extremely difficult. Let's break this up with a timer. Okay. I recommend that you get a stopwatch or you set a timer for 30 minutes. And you've got your head down for 30 minutes doing nothing but, in this case, we're talking about prospecting. So one call after the next for 30 minutes. And then you can take a break for 5, 10, 15 minutes and do whatever you want. Allow yourself to be distracted. Allow yourself to go take a walk, have a coffee, do whatever it is that you do where you don't have to feel guilty not doing what you know you should be doing when you're supposed to be doing it. Now, let me take this a step further. What we can do is break up your prospecting sprints into what we call contact distribution sprints. So the best way in which to do this is to take all of your lead sources that you're prospecting. Let's just say that you're prospecting expired listings for sell by owners, absentee owners, and you do some circle prospecting. So the way in which I find agents to be most productive is when they split that up equally into these mini sprints. So focus on 30 minutes of calling only expired listings. So now my mindset is on this one specific conversation, an expired listing conversation. I'm going to focus on nothing but that for 30 minutes, and then I'm going to take a break. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 30 minutes of nothing but for sale by owners. I'm going to go through my database and I'm going to contact all the for sale by owners in my database. I'm going to focus on that one conversation, that one mindset. Okay, I'm focused on FSBOs right now. So I know the mindset for that. I'm going to focus on that. And you're going to focus on one lead source at a time. This does two things. Number one, it helps you stay obviously more productive based on this Pomodoro technique. And it brings a level of new excitement because you get to change every 30 minutes. The reason why most of us struggle with shiny object syndrome is because we like the newness of the thing. So you get to benefit with that exact same idea while being productive. So instead of trying to mix all your data sources and just prospect for 4 hours straight, split them into small 30-minute sprints followed by a short break, and we're going to focus on one lead source at a time. All right, number 3. We're now going to limit the time you actually give yourself for lead generation. In other words, this is Parkinson's law. And what we know about Parkinson's law is that work expands to fill the time allotted. This is why we see people able to do and get so much done that day before they go on vacation. It's actually reminds me of what I'm doing right now. I've got to shoot 3 videos for YouTube this week because I only have about an hour, hour and a half today to get all these videos shot. And if I don't do it today, then you don't get videos to watch here on YouTube. So I've got to focus on this time right now. I only have an hour. I've got to get 3 videos shot. Well, we can do this exact same thing. So rather than saying to yourself, okay, well, I've got all day. Let's just say your contact goal for the day is 30. What I see most real estate agents doing in the mindset that they have is, well, I've got all day to hit these 30 contacts. And of course, the problem with that mindset is the longer we wait, the more we procrastinate, the likelihood of us hitting those contacts goes down the longer and longer and longer we wait. So rather than saying to yourself, okay, I'm going to give myself all day to get these 30 conversations, I'm only going to give myself 4 hours. I have to get all of my lead generation done before noon. And that's all I have, because after 12 noon, I've got other things that I have to take care of. And so this will help you to stay focused with the time that you do have when you don't allow yourself any flexibility when it comes to lead generation after 12 noon. All right, number 4, let's talk about the Seinfeld strategy. So let me read you something from James Clear's blog. It's really, really good. So here's what it says. All right, this is the Seinfeld strategy. So Brad Isaac, who was a young comedian, started out on the comedy circuit. One night, he found himself in a club where Jerry Seinfeld was performing. In an interview, Isaac shared what happened when he caught up with Seinfeld backstage. He said, here's how Isaac described the interaction with Seinfeld. He said, the way to be a better comic was to create better jokes. And the way to create better jokes was to write every day. He told me to get a big wall calendar that has a whole year on one page and hang it on a wall. That wall has to be a wall that you stare at every single day. The next step was to get a big red magic marker. He said, for each day that I do my task of writing, I get to put a big red X over that day. After a few days, you'll have a chain. Just keep at it, and the chain will grow longer every day. You'll like seeing that chain, especially when you get a few weeks under your belt. Your only job is to not break the chain. Now, you'll notice, the blog goes on to say, you'll notice that Seinfeld didn't say anything about results, right? Going right back to the first thing we talked about. It didn't matter if he was motivated or not. It didn't matter if he was writing great jokes or not. It didn't matter if what he was working on ever made it to the show. All that mattered was not breaking the chain. And see, I think about that a lot when we look at this concept of prospecting. I think a lot of people, struggle. That's why we're making this video, with consistency. So when we focus on the action over the outcome, and we focus on the goal is to be consistent. And when the goal is to be consistent, listen to what I'm saying. The goal is to be consistent. As a result of achieving the goal, you will get the result that you're after. It does not work the other way around. It's actions before outcomes. And so when we align our success and or failure, it has to be around an activity, around an action in which we are in control of. This strategy is super, super powerful. So every day that you hit your 2 to 3, 4 hours of prospecting, whatever it is, whatever your goal is, try this. Grab one of those big calendars, put it on a wall in your prospecting station, and then every day that you hit it, give yourself a big red X over that day that you hit your goal. And what will happen is you'll grow this chain of X's on the calendar, and over time, it won't happen right away, over time, you'll associate more pain with breaking the chain. That'll be more painful than actually making the calls. Number 5, the just one technique. All right, so let me give you an example. Or let me ask you a question rather. Has there ever been a time where you woke up and you didn't feel like going to the gym, right? It happens to everybody. And then once you go to the gym and you start working out, you leave the gym, and 99 times out of 100, you feel so good that you just went to the gym. Where just an hour before, it was like, man, I don't feel like working out today. I don't feel like waking up early. I don't feel like going to the gym. Then you went to the gym. You're like, wow, I'm so happy I did that. Okay. The same thing can happen with prospecting. All right. It's often that you wake up and you say, I just don't feel like it today. Super normal, happens to everybody. The just one technique is to say, okay, rather than give into the emotion of, I don't feel like it today, so therefore I'm going to act on that emotion and I'm not going to do it today. Rather than that, just make one call, just knock one door, and then see how you feel. Then make a decision as to whether or not you're going to continue or not. Rather than this mindset of, am I going to start or not? We need to adjust that and say, am I going to continue with this effort or not? And what you're often going to find, just like we do at the gym, you make that first phone call, you make the second phone call, and you end up continuing to go on. You say, wow, this isn't so bad. And then when you're done prospecting, it's like, man, I'm so happy that I did that. I got 3 leads. I set an appointment. Or if you didn't get any of those, it's fine. You practiced self-discipline and you didn't give into the emotion. And because giving into that emotion is how bottom producers behave, because they're only doing things based on how they feel rather than self-discipline.